Star Wars The Acolyte just dropped, and I'm going to give you my honest opinion about the first episode, Lost and Found. Spoilers for everything here. I'm going to walk through a breakdown of the episode and give you my thoughts at the very end. So let's jump right in. The episode opens with the backstory that the Jedi and the Republic have prospered in peacetime, and these events are happening 100 years before the rise of the Empire. The camera pans down to a city, Ueda, one of the many places we're introduced to in this episode. The assassin May, played by Amandla Sandberg, is hunting down Master Endara, and she tells her to attack, which the Master won't do. This causes May to be the one to start the fight. Eventually the bar clears out, well, so we think, and the fight comes down to Endara and May. It becomes clear to Endara that May is a Force user, the way she kicks a table across the room and then jumps up to the top level. Clearly, Master Endara, however, is easily defeating and controlling the outcome of the battle. It takes May putting the life of the bartender at risk, forcing Endara to be distracted in saving the bartender, and May takes the opportunity to kill her. It sure is nice that a 2-inch knife does more damage than a lightsaber. Now the scene switches to a girl who looks a lot like May, but is named Osha, who is a mechanic, someone who goes out on the ships, kind of think of the role of R2-D2 in The Phantom Menace, but this is people. She has a pocket companion droid named Pip, and she is working on a Trade Federation ship, and when something goes wrong with the shields and is sent out to fix it, she has a flashback of the flames and it's seemingly some disaster that has happened in her life previously. Then all of a sudden a Jedi starfighter approaches, and it turns out that Osha is the one the Jedi are looking for. Open up as the Jedi Yord and his Padawan interrogate Osha, and we learn a lot. We learn that she left the Jedi Order 6 years ago, was raised to be a Jedi, was brought in as an old youngling at 8 years old, and lost her family, her 2 moms and sister, in a fire. Osha is the main suspect for the murder of Endara. The bartender points her out, eyewitness testimony at its finest, and Osha is put on a prison transport to go back for the Jedi Council to interrogate her further. On Coruscant, which by the way looked awesome, you can see the comparison here between this and the Phantom Menace. It looks cleaner and brighter, it fits the time. We meet 2 more Jedi. We meet Master Venestra and Master Sol. Sol is instructing the younglings. He's teaching them about the Force. He says the Force is a power we must respect. It turns out that Sol was the former master of Osha, and that in this case Venestra is more interested in the political ramifications than actually seeking justice. Now we get a prison break on the transport that Osha was being carried on, and it somehow ends with the prisoners back on Coruscant almost immediately, while Osha is stuck on the crash ship. In this sequence, we learn that Osha still has faith in the Jedi and that she is willing to help others. While I think the way the escape went was a bit too easy, it really was just too simple, honestly, but these aspects did help us understand the character of Osha more. We also learned that her connection to the Force is broken or not working, because when she goes to Force pull, nothing happens, and perhaps it's setting up a reconnection later. Once back on Coruscant, we meet Sol's Padawan, Jackie, who is questioning her master about his relationship to Osha. Sol then interrogates the prisoners and convinces Venestra to send him on this important mission. Sol says they need backup, and Jackie questions her master's decision, even putting down the Jedi Knight Yord, as that's exactly who Sol is bringing with them on this mission. I find it very interesting that this Padawan was not harshly reprimanded. This is her first mission after all, yet she can just put down another Jedi as if she knows better. She speaks down to him. I have some specific thoughts on why that is. We might get to that later, but we can clearly see that Yord is being portrayed here kind of as the dumb comic relief, shirt off, kind of lucky to be a Jedi almost. And I think that's a mistake. Either way, we now go back to Osha on the ship, and she starts chasing this figure who's cloaked in the background, which actually all turns out to be a Force dream vision, which is interesting because I thought she was separated from the Force, or at least that's what it showed earlier in the episode. This is done to reveal what we've actually probably already heard leaked before, that this is her twin, May. The connection here between Osha and May shows a dark side to May, but it is very unclear how this whole scene comes about. And that's part of the challenge, is we're not quite sure actually what's going on here. So back on the ship with Sol, Jackie, and Yord, and Sol explains the backstory more, how May and Osha are twins, and everyone thought that May had died, or at least Osha and him had thought May had died, but that ends up not being the case. Now they land back on the planet of the crash site where the prison ship had gone down, and while investigating the ship, Jackie once again undermines Yord, because she has all the right answers, of course, and well, he's just, Yord. The chase ends with Osha finally being saved by Sol, and she tells him that May is alive, and he responds with, "I believe you." Does he have a reason? Or just blind, dumb Jedi luck again? We don't know. Then we cut to a beach with a voice in a mask, clearly meant to be the villain, saying, "If you attack a Jedi with a weapon, you will fail. An Acolyte kills without a weapon. An Acolyte kills the dream." I think there's a lot of good in this first episode, but there was also a lot that seemed off. Unexplained things that honestly, if they had just taken a little bit more time to tease out, would have made so much more sense. Prisoners escape and immediately return. Sol believes Osha seconds after just saying that May was dead. Osha has a Force dream vision after being separated from the Force. The final chase scene felt really kind of forced, almost clumsy, like they needed the scene to be done in only 3 minutes, so let's just make May fall down. But this is streaming on Disney now, rushed out episodes that made the story move along without really thinking about why that's the case, which ends up leaving some of these scenes just not really making sense. Now you might even be thinking, based on what I've just said, that I didn't like the show. I actually enjoyed it. I had fun. There are a number of things that I did really like about what they did. First, I really enjoyed the practical sets. I felt like it helped a lot in the fight scenes to have the practical set nature, to be able to go in and around. It wasn't in this kind of void where everything is just in a background and you're just walking around trying not to bump into the big giant screen behind you. I thought that was really good. I enjoyed some of the character building. I think Sol was the standout for me. Really felt like Qui-Gon Jinn 2.0. Really wise, but not willing to go with all of the pomp and circumstance. Not going to fold into the political leanings of the Jedi. That was one of the things that kind of drew me to that character, but it's also, he's the only character we really got any emotion with. We see his connection with Osha. We see his feeling of pain at his friends, his fellow Jedi, dying at Torben and at Andara. And as we see these start to unfold, we get more of a better picture of that aspect, that he's human. He has attachments, but those attachments aren't bad. That doesn't mean you can't love. It gets to this point where when we're talking about Jedi can't have attachments, it's more about this idea of ownership, selfishness, because why? Selfishness is what leads to the dark side, and that's exactly why they put attachments as something that you can't have as the Jedi, but that's not really what is happening with Sol, and he explains that to his Padawan Jackie. So I really liked that dynamic. The way that he goes about in the episode was really a highlight for me. I did enjoy seeing all of the different worlds that they brought us to. I appreciated that they listed them on the screen and kind of helped us get used to it. I wish they hadn't jumped around so quick. It felt like bang, 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 one place to the other place to the other place, and it never let any time to breathe. That's one of the things I wish they would do differently, is instead of this really being 2 episodes, I know we're just talking about the first one right now, I'm going to talk about the second one in a moment, but this really felt like it should have just been one longer episode and maybe cut out some of the extra things. I do think there's some things hiding under the surface that are really important to talk about, and I'm going to have to do that on another video, so make sure you subscribe for those things. But there's still a few that are hanging that I kind of am a little bit worried about, that when I come to this show, it's hard for me not to put this aside. The treatment of Jackie, feeling like, hey, Jackie can do all these things just because she's a girl, and we're going to put down Jord because he's a guy. And maybe I'm reading that lens over because that's what Disney has really been pushing with all of the releases of what Kathleen Kennedy has said and everything else. That's kind of how it felt, that Jackie is being set up to be this amazing Jedi for some reason, and Jord is just being kind of crapped all over. I'm not quite sure. And maybe, again, maybe I'm off on that, but that kind of bugged me a little bit because it starts to lean into some of the issues that fans really don't want to see in Star Wars. They don't want to see all this agenda stuff making its way in, and I think that's fair. But as of right now, for one episode, I enjoyed this. I thought it was decent. I don't think it's on the same level as Andor, nowhere close to the storytelling, nowhere close to just the cinematics. I think if you go back and even just watch that first episode of Andor, you get a picture and an idea of kind of the cinematic understanding, that it didn't feel like a TV show. This kind of feels like a little bit better than Mando season 3, a little bit better than Ahsoka maybe. I'm not sure. We'll see where it goes, but I'm hopeful that it's going to be somewhere good. The mystery aspect I kind of like, but it's this fine line and balance between something that is just too vague and too just who knows what to actually grab us and make us interested. And so I'm hoping in this next episode, the third episode that is, that we get more to this mystery, because I think they're leaving some breadcrumbs, but really not enough to hook someone. And honestly, if this wasn't Star Wars, I don't know that I would keep watching. I'm just being honest. That's how I feel. There were major hints in this episode, though, that make me think there is a major twist coming between Osha and May. And I'm going to investigate that on a future video, so make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss that when it comes out. Thanks so much for watching, and if you made it all the way to the end of this video, first off, thank you, and second, would you please leave a like? I'd really appreciate it. I'll see you on the next one.